Look closely at this image. What you're seeing isn't just an ancient ruin or a geological anomaly. This, my friends, is a whisper from a forgotten world, a secret guarded by the crushing depths for millennia. And tonight, I'm going to tell you the incredible, heart-wrenching, and ultimately, inspiring story of how we found it. Before we dive into this journey, a journey that changed my life and redefined everything I thought I knew about treasure, I need you to do something for me. If this story stirs even a fraction of the wonder it stirred in me, if it makes you believe in the magic that still hides beneath the waves, then hit that like button. Every single like helps us share these stories, these crucial messages, with more people. And if you want to join our crew, to be the first to witness discoveries like this, to explore the uncharted territories of our planet with us, then click subscribe and ring that notification bell. Because what you're about to hear, it's unlike anything you've ever imagined. This isn't just about gold, it's about the very soul of the ocean, and perhaps, the soul of humanity itself. This is the story of the lost gold of the ocean. Visual fades to a calmer, sunnier ocean scene, then a woman gazing wistfully at the horizon. Music softens, becoming more introspective. My name is Elara Vance, and for as long as I can remember, the ocean has been both my sanctuary and my tormentor. It was a cradle of wonder, a canvas of shifting blues and greens that danced with light, but it was also the vast, hungry maw that swallowed my parents whole when I was just 7 years old. They were marine biologists, pioneers, chasing a whisper of an undiscovered reef system deep in the treacherous waters off the Solomon Islands. A sudden, ferocious squall, a malfunctioning engine, a last desperate radio call, and then, silence. Just like that, the ocean, which had been their passion, became my greatest fear and my deepest obsession. I grew up with the roar of waves in my ears and the scent of salt spray perpetually clinging to my clothes, raised by my eccentric but loving grandmother, a woman whose hands were calloused from hauling nets and whose eyes held the wisdom of 1,000 tides. She lived in a small, weather-beaten cottage on the very edge of the Cornish coast, a place where the land surrendered irrevocably to the sea. Gran didn't try to steer me away from the ocean, even after what happened. Instead, she taught me its rhythms, its moods, its relentless power. She taught me to respect it, but never to fear its secrets too much. She'd often say, "The sea takes, Elara, but it also gives. And sometimes, its greatest gifts are not what you expect." Those words, whispered on stormy nights, became the quiet foundation of my entire life's pursuit. My parents, in their endless pursuit of marine wonders, had left behind more than just memories. They left behind a legacy of research, meticulously organized journals filled with handwritten observations, intricate sketches of bioluminescent creatures, and speculative theories about undiscovered ecosystems. Among these journals, there was one that always drew me in, leather-bound and thicker than the rest, its pages brittle with age. It wasn't just scientific notes, it was filled with old maritime folklore, blurred photographs of ancient artifacts, and hand-drawn maps that looked like they belonged in an adventure novel. This was my father's passion project, as my mother used to call it, his obsession with a legend, the legend of Lyra, a sunken city, whispered to hold not gold, but something far more valuable, a pristine, undisturbed record of Earth's earliest life, an evolutionary vault preserved by some unknown force, deeper than any human had ever dared to venture. He believed it was the true, lost gold of the ocean, not treasure to be plundered, but knowledge to be revered. For years, I devoured those journals, tracing the faded ink with my fingertips, feeling a profound connection to the parents I barely remembered. Their passion became mine. I went to university, not to study business or law, but marine biology, specializing in deep-sea environments. I learned to dive, pushing my limits further with each certification, drawn deeper and deeper into the ocean's embrace. I worked on research vessels, mapping hydrothermal vents, cataloging unknown species, always with that nagging voice in the back of my head, is this it? Is this where Lyra hides? Most colleagues dismissed the Lyra legend as a romantic fantasy, the musings of a brilliant mind gone astray. But I knew my father. He wasn't a dreamer without basis, he was a scientist who dared to dream beyond the known. My first major challenge came after I completed my doctorate. I wanted to pursue my father's quest, to truly search for Lyra. But deep-sea exploration is astronomically expensive. Funding proposals were met with polite rejections, or worse, outright laughter. A mythical city? Dr. Vance, we fund science, not fairy tales. The academic world, for all its open-mindedness, had its rigid boundaries. I was young, determined, but increasingly disheartened. The weight of my ambition felt heavier with each failed grant application, each closed door. I even took on odd jobs, anything to save money for equipment, to buy myself more time on research vessels, to gain access to remote libraries where obscure maritime histories might hold a forgotten clue. One particularly bleak autumn, after a grant application for a deep-sea sonar mapping project, a project I subtly hoped would lead me to Lyra, was denied, I found myself staring out at the turbulent grey sea from my grand's cottage. The wind howled, rattling the ancient windowpanes. Despair was a cold, creeping thing, threatening to extinguish the fire that had burned in me for so long. Was I chasing a ghost? Was I sacrificing my entire life to a romanticized notion, an echo of my parents' unfulfilled dreams? Just as I was about to give in to that crushing wave of self-doubt, Gran placed a steaming mug of tea in my hands. "You know, Elara," she began, her voice raspy like dry seaweed, "your father, he had a friend. An old salt. A man who saw things others didn't. He might not believe in Lyra, but he believes in the sea's secrets." She was talking about Tiberius Blackwood, though everyone just called him Old Man Tiber. He was a relic from a bygone era of fishing and salvage, a man whose skin was leathered by sun and wind, whose eyes, the color of deep sea, seemed to hold all the sorrows and wonders of the ocean. He ran a small, dilapidated chandlery down by the harbor, smelling perpetually of tar, brine, and old rope. Tiber was known for his surliness, his cryptic pronouncements, and his uncanny ability to predict the weather with unnerving accuracy. He was also known to possess a vast, if disorganized, collection of old nautical charts, salvaged instruments, and forgotten lore. Many considered him mad, I considered him a last resort. Gathering every ounce of courage, I approached Tiber's chandlery the next morning. The bell above the door jangled mournfully as I stepped inside, the air thick with the scent of aged wood and forgotten adventures. Tiber was hunched over a workbench, meticulously mending a fishing net, his gnarled fingers working with surprising dexterity. He didn't look up. "Another curious mind come to poke at old bones," he grumbled, without even glancing my way. His voice was like grinding pebbles. "Mr. Blackwood," I began, my voice a little shakier than I intended, "my name is Elara Vance. I'm Dr. Elias Vance's daughter." That made him stop. His hands stilled, and he slowly, deliberately, straightened up, turning to face me. His eyes, clouded with age, seemed to pierce right through me. "Elias's daughter," he repeated, a hint of something unreadable in his tone. "Didn't think you'd still be around these parts. Thought the sea had finally taken all of your family." The word stung, but I stood my ground. "I'm here because of my father's research," I said, pulling out the worn leather journal from my bag. I opened it to a page detailing Lyra, the faded sketch of its ethereal spires almost glowing. He believed in a place called Lyra. A sunken city, not of gold, but of knowledge. Tiber took the journal, his gaze lingering on the sketch. A deep sigh escaped him, a sound like air leaking from an old diver's helmet. "Lyra," he scoffed, handing it back. "A fool's errand, child. Your father chased shadows. The ocean keeps its secrets, and some are better left undisturbed." He turned back to his net, dismissing me. But I wouldn't be dismissed. "My father wasn't a fool," I insisted, my voice rising with a passion I hadn't known I possessed. "He was a brilliant scientist who saw possibilities where others saw only myths. He was searching for something that could change our understanding of life itself. And I believe he was close. He spoke of you, Mr. Blackwood. He said you understood the ocean's whispers better than anyone." Tiber paused again, his back still to me. The silence in the small shop stretched, broken only by the creak of the floorboards under my nervous weight. Then, unexpectedly, he chuckled, a dry, raspy sound. "Whispers, eh? Aye, the ocean whispers many things, child. Most of them lies, meant to lure the unwary to their doom." He finally turned back, a different look in his eyes now, a flicker of something ancient and knowing. But Elias, he was different. He saw the truth in the whispers, even when it led him to places no man should go. Tell me, what makes you so sure his whispers were true? I spent the next hour, perhaps more, pouring out my heart to this gruff old man. I told him about my parents, about their journals, about the fragments of data my father had collected, pointing towards an anomaly in a deep-sea trench that defied conventional geological explanations. I spoke of the unique crystalline structures my father theorized, capable of preserving organic matter for eons, structures that could potentially form the very bedrock of Lyra. Tiber listened, occasionally interjecting with a sharp, insightful question, his eyes never leaving mine. He seemed to be weighing not just my words, but the very essence of my being. When I finally finished, the shop was growing dim with the approaching twilight. He walked over to a cluttered shelf, pulling down a dusty, rolled-up chart. It was old, hand-drawn, filled with notes in a sprawling, illegible script that was distinctly not my father's. He unfurled it on the workbench. "Your father showed me this once," he said, his voice softer now. "An old fisherman's chart, passed down through generations. Supposedly marks a devil's maw, a place where compasses spin and the currents pull you down to the abyss. No one goes there." His finger, gnarled and thick, traced a jagged line leading to a point marked with an X, far, far out in the Pacific, in the same general vicinity my father's notes hinted at. Elias thought it was a clue. He saw things, your father. A spark, long dormant, ignited within me. This wasn't just a coincidence, this was a confluence. "He was right, Mr. Blackwood," I said, my voice filled with renewed conviction. "He was right. And I need your help to find it." Tiber looked from the map to me, then back to the map. He scratched his grizzled beard. "Help," he grunted. "My adventuring days are long behind me, child. And even if they weren't, what makes you think you're ready for what the deep holds? It's not just currents and compasses out there, it's things that challenge the very sanity of a man." He paused, a strange glint in his eye. "It's a place that asks you to redefine what you consider gold. Because I have to," I replied, simply, honestly. Because if Lyra is real, if it holds what my father believed it holds, then it's not just my family's legacy, it's something the world needs to know. It could be the key to understanding our past, and safeguarding our future. I looked him straight in the eye, willing him to see the fire that burned inside me, the fire my parents had kindled. "I've faced setbacks, Mr. Blackwood. I've been dismissed, ignored, and laughed at. But I will not give up. Not now. Not ever." Tiber didn't respond immediately. He just stared at the old chart, his gaze distant, lost in memories. Finally, he gave a slow, deliberate nod. "All right, Elara Vance," he said, his voice barely a whisper, yet resonating with an unexpected authority. "I'll help you. But understand this, the ocean demands a price for its treasures. And sometimes, that price is everything you hold dear. What you seek isn't just lost gold, it's a profound truth. And truth, like the deepest parts of the ocean, can be terrifyingly beautiful and utterly unforgiving." He turned, gesturing to the cluttered shelves around them. "Let's start by looking at what tools you'll need. This ain't no pleasure cruise. This is a quest into the heart of the unknown, and you're going to need more than just hope to guide you." And just like that, with a gruff agreement from an old sailor, my journey truly began. It wasn't the heroic fanfare I had imagined, it was a quiet, almost reluctant pact, forged in the twilight of an old chandlery. But in that moment, I felt a tremor of excitement and apprehension course through me. I was no longer alone. I had an ally, a guide, a link to my father's past. The path to Lyra, to the true lost gold of the ocean, was still fraught with unimaginable challenges, but for the first time in years, I felt a surge of hope that was as vast and boundless as the ocean itself. Visual, Elara and Tiber poring over maps, then quick cuts to rusty equipment being cleaned, Elara training, learning old knot-tying techniques. Music becomes more adventurous and determined. Our first challenge, even before we set sail, was practical: funds. Tiber, despite his wealth of knowledge, lived a modest life. My savings, meticulously accumulated over years, were a drop in the ocean compared to what a true deep-sea expedition required. We needed a vessel, specialized equipment, sonar, submersibles, remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, capable of withstanding immense pressure, and a small, dedicated crew. This wasn't a job for a few divers and a fishing boat. This was a mission to the abyss. Tiber, however, had an unexpected network. Through his contacts in the maritime world, grizzled captains, retired engineers, and even a few eccentric collectors of obscure nautical artifacts, we slowly began to piece together a plan. He introduced me to Old Man Fitzwilliam, a reclusive shipwright who specialized in converting old trawlers into research vessels, albeit on a shoestring budget. Fitzwilliam, a man with a booming laugh and a perpetual aroma of sawdust, was initially skeptical of fairy tales, but Tiber's endorsement and my father's detailed journals eventually swayed him. He saw a glimmer of Elias's audacious spirit in me, and perhaps, a final grand project for his own twilight years. He agreed to refit an old, sturdy vessel named the Siren's Call, a name I found both ominous and poetic. The process of refitting the Siren's Call was an education in itself. I spent months in the shipyards, learning about hull integrity, propulsion systems, and the intricate workings of winches and cranes. Tiber, despite his age, was a demanding taskmaster. He taught me about celestial navigation, the art of reading the wind and waves, and the countless small tasks that keep a vessel alive in the vastness of the ocean. He drilled me on emergency procedures, on the psychological toll of isolation, and on the subtle signs of impending danger that only decades at sea can teach. He made it clear that while science would guide us, sheer survival instinct would be our closest companion. During this period, I continued to refine my father's data, cross-referencing his notes with Tiber's ancient charts and Fitzwilliam's engineering insights. We pored over bathymetric maps, looking for inconsistencies, anomalies that might hint at a structure, a deviation from the expected geology of the seafloor. My father's theory centered on a unique geological phenomenon, a deep-sea caldera that, instead of collapsing, had somehow been sealed off by a rare mineral formation, creating a pressure-stabilized environment that could protect a fragile ecosystem or an ancient city from the ravages of time and pressure. It was a long shot, a speculative leap of faith, but the fragments of evidence, when combined with Tiber's obscure lore, began to form a compelling, if still fantastical, narrative. Funding remained a monumental hurdle. I tried again with private investors, venture capitalists, even documentary production companies, but the story of a lost city of knowledge wasn't as compelling as a sunken galleon overflowing with gold coins. "Where's the quantifiable return, Dr. Vance?" they'd ask, their eyes glazing over. I considered crowdfunding, but the sheer scale of the expedition felt too immense to put on the shoulders of internet donors. It was a classic chicken and egg problem. I needed proof of life.